Hey there, it's Cassie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I have the September 2019 inspiration box for Brutus Monroe, and I have my 5 cards, 1 kit, and it may not feel like fall outside, but it is fall up in my craft room. So let's take a look at what I've made with this beautiful fall box. Before we get started making any of the cards, we're going to go ahead and take a look at this stamp set. It is gorgeous. It's called Autumn Essentials, and it's a big one. And I'm just going to line this up in my MISTI. I'm going to stamp and color all of the images in this set, which are a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp all those out. So I've got some Espresso cardstock stuck into my MISTI. And then I'm going to ink these up with my Raven Detail ink from Brutus Monroe. Now this kit may still be available. I'm not 100% sure as of filming. If it is available, I'll have it linked down below, but the stamp set is still available. So I'll have everything that you could potentially get outside of the box. I'll have that linked down in the description box. So go ahead and take a look there if that's something that you're interested in. So back to the stamping. As I said, I have some Espresso cardstock in my MISTI. That's my favorite for alcohol marker coloring, and I'm inking this up with my Raven Detail ink. I'm going to end up leaving these stamps exactly in my MISTI just like this, because I'll show you later. I plan to stamp over the top of this and emboss it with some embossing powder. So we're going to go ahead and just make sure that all of our images are fairly well stamped out, and then I'll pull those out and I'll start doing my coloring. Now these are just the Arteza EverBlend markers, and I just did 2 marker coloring, not a lot of shading because these are fairly detailed images, and so I didn't need to do a lot with it. But I'm not going to show you all the coloring just simply because this video would be so long if I did, and that's not really what this video is about. It's mostly about the ideas. So you could stamp out a bunch of these, sit and color, watch some Netflix and color, do your thing, and then you have all these elements ready to go for cards and whatnot later on. Alright, so here's what I was talking about, like that I kept all of my stamps in my MISTI right in the exact same spot. So this way I'm able to put my image right back in where it was, and I can use this clear embossing ink. But before I do that, I need to use my magic powder bag all over that, kind of wipe away any of the excess. And then I will continue inking up my images with the embossing ink. It's just a clear sticky ink. And then I'll stamp that down, just kind of rubbing around to make sure that all the images have been stamped properly. And then I'll pull that out, and then I'm going to cover this using some Crisp Leaves embossing powder. This is the embossing powder of the month. And don't worry that it looks like it's kind of staining the paper. That's just the very fine mica powder in it, and it's easily wiped off later on. So I'm just covering all of my images with that embossing powder, just making sure that I have good coverage. And you're not going to see a total, it's not like a crazy difference once it's heated. It's very, very subtle, and you may not even really be able to tell looking at the camera that it actually is giving that crisp leaf look. But afterwards, I promise you, it is there in real life. It's really, really pretty. And it, because I did the black under it, it gives that a whole separate element. And so I'm going to fussy cut all of my images out. And yeah, that takes some time, but I don't really mind. And then we're going to move on to card number 1. So for this first card, we're going to take just a piece of lunch bag cardstock. This is from Brutus Monroe. It's kind of a craft cardstock. And I had cut that down to 5.5 by 8.5 inches and scored it at 4.25 to make it a side folding A2 size card. And I'm going to take some of that striped pattern paper that came in the kit, and I'm going to trim that down to be 4 inches by 5.25 so that it will have a little bit of a border when I put that to my card base. I'm stamping out Hello Fall using my same detail Raven ink, and then I'm going to fussy cut all around the word. And I have it kind of laid out how I want my card, and then I'm going to go ahead and start attaching everything. But before I do that, I take a piece of the jute that came in the kit, and I double it up, and I make a little bow out of it. And then that'll fit right there in the center. So I'm going to start assembling just using some liquid glue to start. And I'll attach my card panel, just that striped pattern paper, down to my card base. And then I'm going to take my tag, which is a really cool burlap tag that came in the kit. And I'm just going to use that same liquid glue to adhere that down to the front of the card. I'm going to double up a small piece of foam tape. And I'm going to stick that right inside where that grommet is. Just like so. Peel off both backing sides and then it has a little bit of a well left, but I'm going to stick down some Ranger Multimedium glue, and this way it'll ensure that that bow is not coming off this card, and it fits nicely inside the grommet hole. I'm using some glue on a couple elements that I just colored. So I've got the pumpkin and the corn, and I use some foam tape on this foremost pumpkin, and then I'm going to stick down the little acorn, and then I have foam tape on my Hello Fall, and then I'll tack that down to the front, and that's going to finish off the first card. So super easy when you have all those elements just colored and ready to go. All right, card number 2 is another quick one since we already had a bunch of those elements just cut and colored and ready to go. I'm taking some of the burgundy cardstock that came in the kit, and I'm trimming that down to 4 inches and leaving it at 5.5 inches. This way on my card base, which is some more of that lunch bag cardstock, I'm just gonna have a little bit of a border on the right and the left. So I'm gonna get my card base ready to go, and there we go. I mean, this is gonna be super simple. I decide I do want to stamp the sentiment in the center, so I condition it a little bit, ink it up with my Raven Detail ink, and then stamp down Fall Vibes right in the center of the wreath. And then this is where I'll start assembling all of the card. I like the way that it ends up looking. You know, you can keep it fairly simple after you've done so much detail coloring. So I'll grab some liquid glue and put that all over the back of my burgundy cardstock and attach that to my card base. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I thought about popping this up on foam tape, which you could very easily do, but I just decided I'd make this a real easy mailer. Super easy, just by using some more of that liquid glue and adhering that down. But for a final bit of embellishment, I do grab some Nuvo drops in the colors Bottle Green and Metallic Mustard Gold. I love that Metallic Mustard Gold. I got several gold Nuvo drops the other day, and that one is definitely one of my favorites. So I'm actually just putting them on a few of the dots that are in the wreath, and then just putting them, you know, going from the upper left to the bottom right, and just makes it really simple. And then when I have as many as I want on there, I'll just tap that down on my stamp block a little bit to make those look a little bit more like enamel dots, and then we're done with card number 2. Project number 3 is pretty special to me because I'm going to use that picture that you see there along with these scalloped edge laser cuts. These are the jumbo tags. I've used these once before in a video, and I did sort of the same thing, just using different products. And I'm pulling out my waffle flour water media mat just so that I can kind of keep the mess a little bit contained. And I'm going over that entire tag just using some spiced marmalade, Distress Oxide ink, and I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to go back over that one more time to try to intensify that color, because this is chipboard. It'll soak in a little bit to that chipboard, and so it does dry back. I've grabbed some penny Aqua pigment, and I'm going to splatter that all over. At one point it sort of looks a little bit like a murder scene, but I just keep splattering because a lot of that's going to get covered up anyway. And then I even do that with a little bit of the bronze. Take the bronze and splatter that as well. I love those aqua pigments, and these ones with the shimmer are just fantastic. That ends up drying back a little bit as well, and then I'm going to grab my ground espresso Distress Oxide ink and put that all over the edge. I love to give my edges a little bit of a grunge look, and so that's what I'm doing here. And then when I'm kind of happy with that, I'll let things sort of dry. And then I'm going to start getting my picture prepared. So that picture is a picture of my mom and myself. I am clearly not good at taking selfies, but this was a picture of us making some pumpkins. We did this just a couple weeks ago. We made some ceramic pumpkins. I took her to this local place where we could make our own pumpkins, and we're going to go back in a week or so, and we're going to paint them and fire them, and then we'll come back and get them after that. But that lady right there is so super special to me because she introduced me to crafting, and she does it all. Like she just does it all. She used to do a lot of painting on wood. She quilts now, but if it's a craft, that she will give it a try. And so that's where I got my love of crafting, and she's the one that introduced me to stamping. So here I am because of her. All right, so I went ahead and backed that with some of that cardstock that came in the kit. And now I'm just kind of placing some of those felt leaves that came in the kit around and trying to figure out the placement of that. I do want to put the Fall Vibes stamp right on there as well. So I'm going to stamp that onto a little scrap of paper that I have, just using that same ground espresso Distress Oxide ink. And then I'm going to fussy cut that out. I'll start using my liquid glue to adhere my felt leaves down, and that way they'll stay very nicely to that back, no problem whatsoever. Typically I would probably even go a little bit more grungy and do all kinds of other mixed media on that background, but I wanted that picture to really be the star of the show, and with those leaves popping out, oh, so pretty. So pretty. So if you're interested, maybe I will show you guys a picture of how those pumpkins end up turning out later on. We'll see. Originally I had put just one layer of foam tape and then some glue, and then I took the backing off that foam tape and stuck it down. But later on I will decide that it needs more than that, so I will peel it off later, but I don't damage anything. And it's kind of at this point where I'm trying to stick the buttons down, and actually at this point I stick my sentiment down with some foam tape. It's at this point when I was looking at the buttons that I decided it just needs a little more. So I went ahead and took some more foam tape and I put it on the back of each of those that already has foam tape, so I doubled those up. And then in the area where I had put glue, I just put one layer of foam tape down. And then I'll peel all that backing paper off. This way it just gives it a little bit more dimension. And since this is a wall hanging anyway, it really doesn't matter how much dimension is on it. So then I'll pop that back down. And this way I can actually stick those buttons down without feeling like I'm peeling anything up. So these buttons came in the kit as well. And in a couple spots I'll even double up the buttons to kind of give them extra dimension. I'm tucking some of those buttons underneath the picture to make it look like they're obviously poking out from behind the picture. And then I almost use all of them, as a matter of fact. I think I use all but 2 of those buttons for this little wall hanging. And as you can clearly tell, I'm not good at selfies, but I love this picture so much because it's such a picture of my mom. She's such a beautiful lady. And so now I am done with project number 3. So I think that turned out like a lot of fun. Card number 4 is going to use one of the beautiful foilables that come in the kit, and I'm just going to color these with my Arteza EverBlend markers, just using 2 colors. And this stamp panel is so detailed that you really don't need to do much. It's really hard to screw them up, honestly. I am basically just putting down the one color, and you can see where I've put in some shading, and then I'm going to go back over this one with my light green and I'm going to kind of blend that out just a little bit. These are just so easy. I'm not going to show you all the coloring because obviously this would be a very long video. I said that once before, but oh goodness, it's just, I don't know, these are fun. I could sit and color panels like this all day, and like I said, the fact that they are as detailed as they are makes the coloring that much easier because you already kind of know where the shading and shadowing is, and it leaves you a lot of room, you know, that you just don't, it's hard to mess them up. I'm sure I could if I tried hard enough, but these are fun to color. Alright, so once I'm done with my coloring, which I'm just going to do a little bit more here, I end up trying to soften up the color of my melon here because it looked a little bit too much like my gourd. I'm going to go around all the outside pieces just with this gray to add a little bit of shadow and shade to the other areas, and I went around every piece just kind of outlining, and I love how that ends up looking. Then I'm going to stamp the sentiment Hello Fall right in the center there, just using my Raven Detail ink. And then I'm going to foil this. I'm going to use these brand new foils by Brutus Monroe, and they are all gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous. I run these through my Amazon Basics laminator. I would put it up here, but I only have so many outlets. But I run it through about 3 or 4 times, and then here you can see, pulling that away, how beautiful that foil absolutely looks on these foilables. Just gorgeous, and it picks up a lot of that detail, which is so fun. And then I'm going to trim down my panel just a little bit, make it a 4 by 5 1/4 inches, and that way it'll leave a little bit of a border of my lunch bag cardstock. And I'm just going to stick this down with some liquid glue. It really doesn't need much more. I'm letting the foiling and the panel itself do all of the talking, and that is going to finish off card number 4. I'm serious, I could sit and do these all day. Oh, I love the foilables. They're probably one of my favorite parts. So I'll have those linked down below because those can be separate from the kit as well. For card number 5, I'm going to pull out the stencil of the month for September along with some Pixie spray because I plan to stencil this right onto one of the laser cuts that came in the kit. So I'm pulling out just a box that I have. I'm going to spray that Pixie spray liberally all over the back. and then let that dry for a few seconds before I attach it to my chipboard. I'm going to use some ground espresso Distress Oxide ink along with a mini ink blending tool. And so I'll just stick that down and it tacks very, very nicely. I'm really enjoying the pixie spray. The last time I used it, didn't use it correctly. I sprayed it and then stuck it on top of anti-static powder tool, which does not work. So I'm starting off by pouncing. I don't necessarily want the color to be too even. I just want the stencil to come through on that background and just kind of change it up. One of the things I love about stencils is that they're so versatile. You can just do just about any medium through them. And when I pull that back, I'm kind of in love. So I'm going to attach this to one of the pieces of cardstock that came in the kit. I cut that down to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. And this laser cut fits almost entirely across that. So then once I have that tacked down, I'm going to snip off the excess of that yellow cardstock that you see sticking out there. And then it will fit almost the entirety of my card base, which is some more of that lunch bag cardstock. It just goes so well with a theme, the autumn theme. I have a piece of cardstock and I'm going to stamp down Hello Fall. And then I'm going to fussy cut that out. And then I'm going to start attaching the rest of my pieces that I had from when I cut and colored earlier. So I just had some leaves left over. And I'll attach this down onto my card base. And then I'm going to snip off the excess of that laser cut so that I don't have any of that sticking out. Because I do plan to put this into an envelope. If I had just planned to give this to the recipient, it wouldn't be any big deal. I could leave the pieces of the leaf on there without having to worry about cutting those off. But I am probably going to send this in the mail, so that's what I had to do. I put some foam tape on the back of my sentiment, then I'll stick that down. And then I'm going to take those 2 last leaves and I'll just put those on the inside of the card. And now I have officially used all of the pieces that I cut and colored. And I got 3 cards out of that deal. So I was pretty excited about that. I'm taking the sequins that came in the kit and I'm going to just liberally put those all over the front of my card. And I'm going to tack those down using my Crystal Katana along with some Morning Dew Nuvo drops. You could use just about anything, but I thought if these were going to poke through, it would look nice and crystal. I like these sequins because I don't have any vanilla looking sequins. These are not like a white. These look more vanilla, which I like that. And then I decided I also wanted to put a little bottle green, a few drops of that. I make a little mess there, as you can see, but that's an easy fix. I've done that before. Sometimes I get in a hurry and make those mistakes, but I'm just taking my paper piercer and I'll push that back just a little bit. And then I'm going to take that mustard gold one more time and put those in the centers of my sequins just to add a little bit more dimension in those. And then that will end up finishing off card number 5. Pretty happy with how that one turned out as well. I do have a bonus card for you that I'm going to show you here in a second. I used another one of those foilables and I colored it with my Arteza EverBlend markers and then used some new foil, which I will have linked down below, that is new to Brutus Monroe. And then yeah, so let's go ahead and take a look at all the cards that I made today. I would love to know which one of these was your favorite if you had one, and if so, please leave that in the comment section down below. That's probably my favorite part, as I always say, about making cards and projects, is loving to hear what you guys think. And as always, guys, I really do appreciate your love and support and liking and subscribing and everything you guys do. You guys are an amazing community, so as always, I appreciate you guys stopping by.